All right. Good evening for the part 2 edition of Sunday's Daf. We will be missing tomorrow night. So Monday night will not be a Daf Yomi because of the big Simcha. And it will be returning on Tuesday. Also note on your calendars that Wednesday night, Ma'ariv is at 9:30 in Daf Yomi to follow Ma'ariv. So sorry about that, but I will be doing parent-teacher conferences, and we can't miss because we've already missed them. Already missing on Thursday. I missed, and now we're got to catch back up again. So we are at the second line. Tani Tana Kame de Rav Nachman. So we taught the following before the following was taught. One of the Chum taught the following. Brisa in front of Rav Nachman. Kol ha'azara haisa mea u'shmonim v'sheva. The entire azara was 137 amos by al rochav mea u'shloshim v'chamesh by 135. Right, 187 by 135. Amar le, Rav Nachman said, Hachi Amar li Abba. This is what my father told me about that. Kegon zeh. That area is Kohanim Nichnasim L'Sham. The Kohanim are allowed to go into that area. V'ochlim Sham Kachim Kachim. And in that area, the Kohanim are allowed to eat the Kodesh, the holy meats from the Korbanos. And Shachten Sham Kachim Kalim. And that is also the entire area that you're allowed to slaughter all of the lighter level Korbanos. And the Chayavin Mishum Tuma. And also that's the area that you're not allowed to go into when you are Tameh. Okay, so now, L'me'ute mai, which areas are we excluding? When you give me an area and you say this whole area is included, what's excluded in that area? Ile me'lemute chalonos dolosos ve'ovechoma. What about, maybe you're telling me the windows, the doorways, and the thickness of the walls, right? So in these areas, all the walls had some thickness to them. What is the status of those areas? Maybe it's coming to tell me that all of the thicknesses of the door of the walls are not considered to be holy areas, right? So Tanina, we learned that in a Mishnah in Psachim, hachalonos v'ovechoma kilifnim, that they are holy. By the way, that creates significant halachic questions in modern times by the kosel, right? When people put their notes into the kosel, sticking your fingers into the airspace of the kosel may be a significant problem, right? Because if you're doing that, it's almost like you're entering the area. If the outside of the walls, the thickness of the walls, is kilifnim, right? You've heard of this before, right?
What's the reason for putting the note in the kosel?
Well, we are thinking that Hashem is in that area, so if we write a note, then Hashem will read it, right? So therefore, sticking them may be a concern, right? But
are there those who would refrain then?
Yes, there are those who would specifically refrain based on this brisa, right? Oh. Based on this brisa. Now, I didn't look up before this year. I'm going to look that. I'll try to look. And these are the things I got to start writing down all the things. So if I want to post some articles and things that on the chat, so that people can take a look at that. Lishkos, the rooms where we're excluding the rooms that are off. That are all around. These little spaces, there are little rooms. We'll learn about what each of those are for in separate in a later Masechta. But all of those rooms are not considered to be part of the Azara. Well, the Ibachol, but those Ibnuyas Bachol, Psuchas Kodesh. If those areas, if you're telling me that if they were built into the area outside of the Azara, right? Let's say they're built like we see some of these that have areas and spaces that go outside of the courtyard space. Let's say these stick out. You see they stick out to the outside of the courtyard space, but they open into the Kodesh. So if that's not, we learned in a Mishnah, Tochan Kodesh, they were considered to be holy on the inside. And so therefore those are part of the Azara also. So the answer is, Midirabanan. This is telling us that Midirabanan, you shouldn't use them, right? Although they are fine, right? We're going to avoid using those spaces to come into you're not allowed to go there into those areas betuma, right? Even though they're not considered to be areas of the Azara that you can eat kodshim in, and they're not areas that you can shecht in for kodshim kalim. But midirabanan, the chacham say, don't go into those areas because it'll be tameh, and that's an extra chumrah, right? Because you'll accidentally walk right into the Azara. Uda oraisa lo? Are you telling me that those side rooms are not holy mida oraisa? That tanya with oraisa. Lishkos b'nuyas bechol. Those chambers which are built in the area outside of the courtyard area. Upsochos HaKodesh, but they have doorways that enter into the holy area. Minayin shakonim nichnasim l'sham ve'ochlin sham kodshei kodshim shiar mincha. How do we know that Kohanim can go into those rooms and they can eat their kodshei kodshim there and the leftover of the mincha? Talmud Lomar, the pasuk says, b'chatzar ol moed yochlua. They have to eat them in the courtyard of the ol moed. HaTorah ribsa chatzeros harbe etzel achila achas. The Torah is telling us that there are lots of different places that you could eat, meaning not just the Azar itself, but all of those side chambers as well are considered to be holy. So therefore, Amar Rava says,
how many side chambers were there in the?
We're going to see that all of these different side rooms, and each one had a different purpose, which we will discuss. But I don't want to get all into each of them because I don't remember all of them, and it is something that goes that we're going to learn in great detail later on. What all the components are. Amar Rava, so Rava says, Lachila Shani. It says, as far as eating is concerned, right, as far as Tuma is concerned, then they're not Kodesh. For eating is concerned, they are Kodesh. So it's actually kind of a interesting phenomenon. There are Kodesh for some, right? Aval Inyan, Tuma, right? Rava says, Lachila Shani, they're fine for as far as eating is concerned, they're Kodesh. Right? Because the pasuk says, "B'chatzar olameit yochlu." The pasuk says you can eat them in addition to the courtyard area. Eat in them in addition to the area of the courtyard. Aval inyan tuma lo. But as far as tuma is concerned, they're not holy, and therefore, if you're tummy when you go in, it's only a prohibition derabanan to do that. V'atanya, we learn in a brisa, not like that. Lishkos habnuyos b'chol psuchos hakodesh. If you have these chambers that are built into the outside area of the walls, and they have doorways that go into the Azara. Kohanim nichnasam l'sham ochlin sham kodshei kodshim. The Kohanim are able to go in there and they're able to eat their kodesh kodshim meat. Vein shochten sham kodshei kodshim kalim. But you cannot shecht in those areas. V'chayavin mishum tuma, and you are chayav for tuma there. So you just said they're not, but this seems that you are. Lav amart ein shochten tninami ein chayavin. He says, well, didn't we just say, it says that you have to look at the words of the Brisa, right? We clearly have that we're just going to say that you're not allowed to do shchita there. So then that means that they're not part of the Azara because you can't do shchita there. So therefore you have to understand this Brisa also as meaning that there's no tuma as well, right? It wouldn't make sense. I understand why eating would be acceptable because the pasuk specifically says so, but it would not make sense to say that you can't do shchita there, but you are chayav for tuma. That doesn't make sense. If you can't do shchita there, then therefore it's not part of the Azara. So bishlama ein shochtin ba'ina keneged pesach veleka. Yeah, but I can tell you why it's different. Shchita requires to be opposite an open doorway, as we learned this morning, right? So you need an open door of the Beis HaMikdash. You're in a room, on a side room, so you're not opposite an open door. But as far as it being Kodesh is concerned, it's a Kodesh, and therefore you can't go in there while you're Tameh. Ella ein chayavin amai. So why would that be? That you wouldn't be liable for tuma there? Okay, well, ulatamech, according to you, ein shochtin. So it says there you're not supposed to shecht these kodshei kalim in that area. Mi lo askinon deika shchita keneged hapesach. Are we not dealing with where even in a circumstance where one of these rooms would have an opening directly across from the opening of the Beis HaMikdash, let's say these side rooms here, right? It's directly open and opposite. And so therefore you can't say that this room is not opposite the opening of the Beis HaMikdash, and therefore you can't shecht there. It is opposite, right? De'i leka l'mai itzterich. And furthermore, right, that if the Bryce is saying that you're only not allowed to do shchita that in a circumstance where the shchita is not keneged a Pesach, so then why does the Brisa have to tell me that the shchita in the side chambers is puzzle if the din has nothing to do with the side chambers, it has everything to do with whether it's opposite a door or not? Ella, rather, afal gav de kashachit keneged a Pesach tani ein shochtin. We have to be able to see, even though we know that you're supposed to shchita opposite the Pesach, nevertheless, this Brisa says you are not allowed to do shchita in those areas anyway, regardless of the fact that it's opposite a door. Why? Mishum de lo kodesh because those are not holy places. It's a separate issue, right? We've got two reasons why you wouldn't be able to shecht someplace in this area. One is it's not part of the Azara, it's not holy. Number two, even if it is holy, it needs to be opposite a doorway. Fine. So therefore we see that these rooms are not considered to be holy. So therefore, Taninami, so therefore you have to learn Ein Chayav, and you have to be able to say that you can't be liable for Tuma problems in those areas as well. Right? Shchita, if Shchita is not allowed, despite the fact that it could be opposite doorway, then Tuma is not a problem. Those two things have to go hand in hand.
You can still eat your kachim there.
But yeah, you can still eat your kachim there. Yeah. Why? Because it's special, because that has a special pasuk.
Got it.
Right? That is a special pasuk where the Torah tells me specifically that the rules of where you can eat are different than the rules of where it's sanctified.
Interesting.
But still, it's not so simple, as the Gemara will continue on. Vela achila, as far as eating is concerned, lo ba'inon keneged Pesach. You still, okay, fine. I understand that the sanctification for eating is not an issue. Nevertheless, don't you have to eat it opposite a doorway of the Ol Moed? That time you didn't learn a brisa. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Shnei Pishpishin Hayu Bebeis HaChalifos, that they had these two doorways that we had said on the two back corners of the Ulam area, Govan Shmona, that were 8 amos high, Kedei Lahachshir as Ha'azara La'achilus Koche Kochim U'L'Shchitas Koche Kalim. The whole reason why they were there is so that you can eat Koche Kochim there and do Shchita for Koche Kalim there, which means that even in those rooms where you can eat, you still need it to be opposite the open doorway of the Beis Hamikdash. So if you had a side room and the doorway wasn't open towards the doorway of the Beis Hamikdash, you shouldn't be allowed to eat there. So Amar Ravina Sami Mikan Achila. So you got to remove from that brisa that we just learned that these pashpashim were not here so that you could eat. Meaning eating doesn't require a doorway. These doorways were here so that you could do shchita of koche kalim, right? The eating doesn't need to have a doorway. That's got to be how we're going to learn this. Well, v'haksev, but don't we have a pasuk that says, in Vayikra Ches, the whole pasuk starts off, Vayom Moshe Aaron v'Banav, Bashlu es habasar, right? You're going to cook the meat, Pesach Oel Moed, by the opening of the Oel Moed, V'sham tochlu, so and there you shall eat it. Which means the pasuk is clearly specifying that the chazeh, the chest part of the animal, which was separated during the Yemei Miluim, which was separated as during the days that they inaugurated the Beis Hamikdash, so that was supposed to be cooked and eaten opposite the opening of the Oel Moed, V'sham tochlu also. So therefore, you need, clearly seems that you need to eat it opposite an opening. The answer is Kache Shoshani. That was the korbanos, those are sacrifices by the inauguration of the Mishkan. That was unique, right? Those korbanos we never do again. Those korbanos needed to be eaten opposite an opening of the Oel Moed, but for all generations, you don't need to eat kodshim opposite an opening of the Oel Moed.
So is your understanding that kachim also you need to shecht it in front of one of the doorways?
You do need, but remember it has to be in the north side anyway, right? So I believe the answer would be yes, the door has to be open for the, right? Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Avodimi, minayin ledam shenifsal bishkia sachama. Okay, so now, how do I know that the blood, right? Let's say you have blood from the korban that has not yet been thrown, that now sunset comes. So you're not allowed to do korbanos at night. So once sunset comes, all the services of doing any of the blood services pause. You could still burn the limbs of the korbanos on the mizbeach overnight, but you can't sprinkle any blood at night.
What's the reason why you can't eat it behind closed door? That the door has to be open.
Because we said in the end we don't, right? And we thought that it was because we had a pasuk about the inaugural sacrifices where it says that those had to be eaten in front of an open door. But in the end, we said that was unique to the inaugural sacrifices. Nowadays, if there are any korbanos during the times of the Beis Hamikdash, those did not need to be eaten opposite. Only the shchita of koche kalib need to be done opposite an open door, because the pasuk says specifically by them, by those korbanos need to be done by opposite an open door. Now, let's say you've got this blood and you're sprinkling, it gets to be shkia, right? It gets dark. Shenamar, the pasuk says, "Biyom hakrivo as zivcho ye achel." during the day that it is brought, it brings a sacrifice, it shall be eaten. So the pasuk says, Hikrivu azivcho, right? That's earlier on. The pasuk says that it also says that you shall bring it close. Bayom she'ata zoveach ata makriv. The day that you are slaughtering it, that's the day you have to sprinkle the blood. You can't do it the next day. You can't take this blood. We call that pasul belina, lon. That means it stayed overnight. It's going to be no good. But even before it's lon in the morning, right? Lon usually happens when it gets to be in the morning. This is even as soon as nightfall falls. Biyom she'iyat zoveach, the day that you're not bringing the korban, iyat makriv, you cannot bring the blood. So, okay. So,
what's interesting is that pasuk says, and the next day you could do it. Anyway, it's just a drasha.
What is that? No, there's no such thing as just a drasha. Let's say here. I want to defend the drashas here. Right? Im neder nadava zavach korban b'yom hakrivo as zivcho ye'achel umimacharas v'hanosar mimenu ye'achel. B'yom hakrivo es zivcho, which means the day that you do the zvicha, you shall bring the blood, but then you can eat it on the next day. Right, that's I guess the korban. I'm presuming we're dealing here. This is talking about a shlamim. Mem Gimel. This makes sense, right? Right. There's the machlok is here by Rishon. Rashi says here that when we say it, even though it says shkias achama, Rashi says that it's tzeisa kochavim. Right, that's when nightfall. Right, but the Rabbeinu Tam says that there's two shkios. Right, shkia is when the beginning of the sun sets and it's still day, and then the dam is nifsal. The dam becomes pasul at that point. B'diavad. So there's a whole conversation about exactly when it's best to daven, even because if it aligns with these issues of when you can bring korbanos, when you can bring the nighttime korbanos, the daytime korbanos, whether shkia is the big time or whether tzeisa kochavim is the right time. So be nice to be able to go through a lot of detail there, but not for now. But what were we saying? So we were saying, right, so this is, even though it says, yes, you're supposed to, you can consume it the next day, but the blood has to be sprinkled on the same day that you do the zvicha, do the slaughtering. Okay, now, Haimi Boile Legufe, we're on the base. So he says, well, wait a second. We need that pasuk in order to tell me the main law, which is that the main law is that you're supposed to eat your meat of the korban shlamim for 2 days and 1 night. So that's what the pasuk is telling me, right? It says, the pasuk says, the day that you bring it, you shall eat it, and the next day, right? So you said that means the sprinkling of the blood. No, that's the eating of it. So im kain, if that was all the pasuk was telling me, then name akra, the pasuk would just say, b'yom zivcho ye'achel, right? Just that you should eat it, the day that you slaughter it, you shall eat it, and the next day. Hakrivo lamali. Why does it use the phrase hakrivo? That's the word hakrivo, to bring it close. That's the phrase that pays, right? Shma mina, you could see from there, bayom she'ata zoveach, it's the day that you slaughter it, ata makriv, you have to bring the blood. Bayom she'ata zoveach, but not the day that you bring this, you shech the korban, ata makriv. So that clarifies your point, right? That's better. V'dilma hachi kamarachmana. Maybe the pasuk it means like this. Im korev dam ha'idna nisachel basar ha'idna. Maybe it just means that if you bring the blood, then you could start eating it. Ulemachar, then you can eat it now and tomorrow. I korev dam lemachar, but if you don't bring the blood until tomorrow, nisachel basar lemachar liyomi ochra. Then you could start eating it tomorrow and the day after that, right? So the answer is, im kain, if that's true, then nemakra biyom hakrivo ye'achel. The day that you bring the blood, you can eat it. That's not what it says. Zivcho lamali. Why are we bringing in zvacho, which means the slaughtering? The day of the slaughtering is critical here too. Shma mina, you see from here, biyom shata zoveach, the day that you do the slaughtering, atamakrivo, you have to bring the blood. Biyom sheyata zoveach, if it's not the day that you slaughter it, atamakrivo, that's not the day to bring the blood. Okay, now, Itmar, we have suggested, hamechashev le'or shlishi, right? Let's say somebody who's thinking about when he's doing his shchita of his shlamim, that he's going to eat the korban the night of the third, right? The third, we always say or means the evening of the third day, which means the night before the third day, which means the night after the second day, right? So you're supposed to eat it. You have day 1, you have day 2 to eat it. That night, is no longer time to eat it. Let's say you have das, you're going to eat it that night. Chizkiya Amar kosher.
Not that night, but or right before that night. Isn't that what that?
Or means the night of, right? Belel, when right Urla Arba'asar, right? In Maseches Psachim is the famous right whole conversation about where Urla Arba'asar. That's when you're supposed to search for chametz. The night before the 14th of Nisan. So,
You see the night before B'dikas Chametz, right?
that's what exactly. So therefore, that's when we say Urla Shlishi. That's the night before the third day. So Chizkiah says that's kosher. That's not chutz chuzmano. And Rabbi Yochanan says it's possible. Rabbi Yochanan says that's chutz chuzmano. That's pigul. Chizkiah mar kosher. Chizkiah says kosher. Why? Deha lo intik. Because, right, it's not intik l'sreifa. Because when do you burn your korban? When do you burn the leftovers? You burn the leftovers the morning after the korban is no longer able to be eaten. So when you've got a shlomim, normally you've got 1 day and 1 night to eat it, which means you wake up on the second day, you got to burn it, right? Your korban pesach is that way, right? Korban pesach, I eat it that night, and then whatever you leave over, you can't continue to eat. You got to burn it in the morning, okay?
You think you're not allowed to send korban the next day from the day
But a
before.
korban shlomim you can eat on 2 days. So with a korban shlomim you can. So korban shlomim I've got today, I've got tonight, I've got tomorrow. What happens then? Nightfall comes, can't eat it anymore. But you don't burn it then. You wait till the third day. Says Chizkiah, yeah, but it's not, since you don't burn it till the third day, it's not pigul unless you think that you're going to eat it on the third day, not the night before the third day. And Rabbi Yochanan says, Pasol, deha'idchi le'me'achila. Rabbi Yochanan says, no, it's pigul because you can't eat it anymore. It doesn't matter about the burning, it matters about the eating. Okay. Now, ha'ochel le'or shlishi, somebody who eats the korban that night, that third night. Chizkiah Amar Potter, Chizkiah says that you don't have to bring a korban chatos for eating nosar, right? Because not nosar yet, because you don't have to burn it yet. Delo intuk l'sreifa, it's not time to burn it, so you don't call it nosar. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chayev, deha'idchi b'ayachila, you can't eat it anymore. Therefore, it's nosar, and therefore you have to bring a korban for it. Tanya Kavasid Rabbi Yochanan, we have a brisa that supports Rabbi Yochanan says, Kodshim and Echolim b'yom echad, if you have kodshim that have to be eaten on 1 day, mechashvin bidman mishatishka hachama, so then you can make if you are considering during the time of shchita, that you're going to do some part of the korban. Let's say you're going to do the sprinkling of the blood from nightfall of the day of shchita, which is already past the time of shchita, because you can't pass the time of sprinkling once nightfall comes. Ubiv saran ube'emu rehan, and also that you are thinking that you're going to eat the meat or its fats that have to be burnt, mishiyale amuda shachar, from daybreak the next day, which is already past the time, then that's already pigul. But those things that you have 2 days to eat it and 1 night, it's considered to be pickle if you have intent to sprinkle the blood past its time, which is that 1 day, once it gets to be sunset. And then from the fats that you have to burn overnight, that's going to be from daybreak on day 2. But the meat, since you can continue to eat it on day 2, once it gets to be sunset of the second day. So that supports Rabbi Yochanan's perspective that he seems to say once sunset comes, it's going to be a pigul problem. Okay.
So that's exactly like Rabbi Yochanan.
That's exactly Rabbi Yochanan, right?
Okay.
Tanya Kavasi Rabbi Yochanan. So they're pretty good, right? That's Rabbi Yochanan. Tana Rabbanan, we learned in a brisa. So you might think, right, that you can continue to eat your korban that night. Vedinhu. There's a logic here, because Zevachim necholin liyom echad, when you have a korban that you can only eat for 1 day, Zevachim necholin lishnei yamim, and you have korbanos that can be eaten for 2 days. Ma zvachim hanecholin yom echad, just like the korbanos that can only be eaten 1 day, laila acharein, the night that you can eat it comes following the day that you eat it, right? You shecht it, that means today you can eat it, and tonight, as the night follows the day. Af zvachim hanechol lishnei yamim, laila acharein. So too, you might think that when the Torah tells you you've got 2 days and 1 night, it's 2 days and then the following night. So Talmud, yeah.
Don't Jewish days begin the night before?
But that's not the relevant point. The relevant point is the Torah is telling you how long you have to eat it. So you're right. That's the next day, but the Torah is telling me I'm allowed to. right? Because that's the way all korbanos work, right? Any korban I can bring, I'm going to shech the today, but I can eat it tonight, but tomorrow it's, yes, but irrelevant that that both of those, the night is Thursday and morning is Thursday. The night I can eat it, Thursday morning I can't. So af Zevachim and echol Hashem laila achrehen. So Talmud Lomer, therefore, less says va'nosar ad yom, right? Therefore, it says anything that's left over until the day of the third day is burned. Ve'od yom hu ne'echal ve'eno ne'echal le'or shlishi, that it can only be eaten during the day, not the night. Right? So it's like, even though the pasuk really says, right, nosar yom shlishi beis yisreif, but since it says ad yom, right, the day is where you're allowed to eat it. Okay. Yachol Yisarf miyad. So you might think, okay, gets to be nightfall, shkia, I should burn it immediately, right? Burn it at night. Why wait till the morning? V'dinu, there's a logic to that. Zevachim nechalim yom echad, if when it comes to korbanos, right, that can be eaten for one day, and zevachim hanechal l'shnei yom, we also have korbanos that can be eaten for 2 days. Ma zevachim nechalim yom echad tekef la'achila sreifa. Just like when you have one day, immediately when it's too late to eat it, you got to burn it, right?
At night?
In the morning.
You make it to a korban
Yeah.
Right? The next morning. Well, no, korban olah, nobody's eating, right? It's going to be, everything's burnt, right? Now, so this is, let's say we're talking about a korban Pesach, for example. You're supposed to eat it that night of Pesach, that whatever gets left over, you eat it all night. I know that we said until midnight that you have to stop. We'll have that conversation in a moment. But you should eat it all night. Immediately in the morning, you burn it. So two, the following morning.
Meaning after Chag.
No.
before the Chag.
You could do it. Well, remember, it is, you burn it that morning of Pesach.
You do? Oh, I thought we said that you don't do it.
That's,
What did we say that you
we
wait
said
till-
that you have to wait till the next day. That is, that's on, there is something that we wait on.
Yeah.
Is it the Chagiga? Yeah, but we can burn that the very next day.
Okay.
Av Zevachim anechol l'shnei yamim tekef la'achila sreifa. So too, the Zevachim, right, that have 2 days, immediately after as the time expires to eat it, that night burn it. So Talmud Lomer, the pasuk says, by Yom HaShlishi, by Yis Yisharef, you should burn it on the third day, right? You wait till don't burn it at night. Wait overnight, burn it in the morning. By Yom HaTasofar v'Yatasofar b'Leila, burning has to be during the daytime, not at night. Okay, good. Next Mishnah. HaBechor, we're getting to the end of the korbanos here, right? Bechor v'hamaiser, right? Firstborn animal has to be brought if it has no blemishes, brought as a korban. And meiser, 10th, you count all your animals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. The 10th one is also brought as a korban. And ha-pesach, korban pesach, those are all kodshei kalim. Shchitas and b'chol makom bazar, you can check them any place in the azar. V'damon ton matana achas. Its blood only gets put one sprinkling on the mizbeach, right? So you're just going to throw it onto the mizbeach, right? Ubevad shitin keneged yesod. It has to be opposite one of the bases, right? Which is going to be on the northwest corner, right? Not the southeast, as we said, because the southeast has no. And then shina ba'achila son, right? The rules of their eating, of the consumption of these different korbanos are all different. HaBechor ne'achal kohanim. The bechor, the meat gets given, the animal gets given over to the kohen to eat. Right, the pasuk says in Bamidbar, ubisaram yelach kachset nufak shokayamin l'chayek, goes to the kohen. V'maiser, when it comes to the 10th animal, l'chol adam, the person. It's not matnos kuna. It's not a gift to the kuna. Whoever brings it eats it. And of course, korban pesach we didn't even mention here, but korban pesach we know is supposed to be whoever is assigned to the korban. V'necholin b'chol year, it's eaten anywhere in Yerushalayim. B'chol ma'achal. Right, could be eaten in any way. L'shnei yamim v'layla echad, for 2 days and 1 night. Now, ha-pesach, when it comes to the korban pesach, nechol eno nechol b'layla. That can only be eaten that one night. You don't have 2 days and 1 night to eat it, and you don't even have a day and a night. Right, got to eat it that night. Right, ve'eno nechol ela chatzos. You also only have until midnight to eat it. Right, ve'eno nechol ela limnu yav. Also, only the people who are set to be designated as people before the korban was brought, can be who are appointed. Those are the only ones that can eat it. Veino nechal elatzli, and you can only eat it roasted. Must be eaten roasted. You can't eat it any other way, right? Remember that one? Right? That's a good point, right?
Yep.
Okay, good. Man Tano. So who's...
So you don't have to do any kind of sprinkling on the...
You do, right?
I mention it,
I know, it didn't mention. No, because we said by all three, we started off, the Mishnah first said, by all three, one sprinkling,
okay.
right? It did not mention that we had to catch the blood by into a kli, a sharis, or any of those things. It just calls it kachei kalam, and it just presumes at this point we know what that means already.
Oh, so Pesach, you do need to sprinkle it on the...
Yes,
Okay.
but one time, right? It needs only damon ton matana achas. Okay, mantana. Who is this? Who is the opinion that says that the korban pesach and the meiser and the behema are all the same way of applying the blood? Right? Amar Rav Chisda, Rabbi Yossi Glili. This is Rabbi Yossi Haglili. Detanya. We learned in a brayso. Rabbi Yossi Glili Omer. Rabbi Yossi Glili says, the pasuk says, "Es damam tizrokum mizbeach ves chalbam taktir." You're going to throw its blood on the mizbeach and you're going to burn its fats. Chelbolo nemar ela chelbam. It doesn't say singular, its fat, which would be what the singular, the bechor's fat. It says chalbam, their fats, implying that the rule here is talking about multiple korbanos. Damolo nemar doesn't say throw its blood. It says el damam, throw their blood. So li made al bechor u'meiser u'pesach shetun matan dam ve'murim legabe mizbech. So therefore, we are learning that you need to all of those korbanos have the same rule. The meiser, the bechor, and the korban pesach are the plural. When it's called, says their fats, their blood, when it's only talking about the bechor, means that it's talking about these other types of korbanos as well, have the same rules as the other ones as far as throwing the blood. Okay. So then, that's what Rabbi Yossi Aglili's opinion is in any event. We haven't seen yet other views on that. Okay. So now, how do we know that it has to be Keneged Yesod? Keneged Yesod Minolan. How do you know? How does the Tana know that that you have to be able to put the blood next to the sprinkled over a Yesod? Amar Rabbi Elazar Asya Zrika Me'ola. Right, we have a Gzera Shava of the word Zrika from Ola. Right, by a bechor, the pasuk says Es damam tizrok al mizbeach. You're going to take their blood and throw it on the mizbeach. And by the Ola, it says, V'zarku es adam al mizbeach. You're going to throw the blood on the mizbeach. So therefore, just like the Ola needs to be thrown with a Yesod, so also all of these, Bechor, Meiser, and Pesach, need to be thrown opposite a Yesod.
That's like northwest, right?
Yeah, either of those two sides, right? That's when we said, which one did the Mishnah, which one did we say here? We said it was...
Did we say any? As long as it has the...
I thought it would be any, but here it says... Shita Keneged Yesod, Al Koslo Hamaravi, Otzvoni, right? Or the west side or the north side, wherever there's a Yesod. You've got three choices. Okay? Good. The Ola Gufa Minolan. How do I know by the Ola that you need a Yesod? Well, that we learned a couple of days ago. Dichsev El Yesod Mizbach HaOlah. Remember, we had the word El Yesod Mizbach HaOlah 3 times. We made Al Olas Chova Shetu'una Yesod. So we said that from there, the HaOlah, the extra word HaOlah is extra. So therefore, it tells us that the Olah, the Zrika of the Olah, needs to be done opposite a Yesod. Okay. Ima lahalon shte matanos shehein arba. So maybe if you're learning from Ola, then it has to be sprinkled the same way as an Ola. An Ola has 2 applications that are 4, right, on the corners. So avkan shte matanos shehein arba. So these also should have 2 applications that are 4. Amar Rabbi says lamali lemichtav saviv ba'ola. So then why does the pasuk say that you have to sprinkle the blood of the Ola all around? Saviv bechatos. It also says by a korban chatos. Saviv all around. So, so you would have 2 psukim which say the same thing, that they have to be on all sides of the mizbeach. Which means that rule only applies to these 2 cases. That other than the ola and the chatos, you don't need to have an application on all the sides. So, right? So therefore, you don't need a blood application unless it's specified, and where by the Bechor and by the Pesach and the Meiser, where it's not specified, that has to be done Saviv all around. It doesn't have to be done Saviv all around. So, Hani Chalaman Damar Ein Milamdin. Fine, according to the opinion that says that 2 is enough to tell me I don't have a rule. So, but what about Milamdin Ma'ikal Meimar? What about Milaman Damar Milamdin Ma'ikal Meimar? What about the opinions? There are those that say that 2 is not enough. So the answer is Have Asham Shosha. It says Saviv also by the Asham. Tells me that also Asham has to be done all around. So, Shosha Vadei Milamdin. Everybody says once you've got 3, then for sure, right, you need only those ones that say Saviv are the ones that you have to do it on all sides. Okay. Then we say, HaBechor nechol leKohanim. The Bechor is eaten by Kohanim. So Tana Rabban Rabbi Zord. Minayin leBechor shenechol l'shnei yomim v'layla echad. What is the source for the Bechor that is eaten for 2 days and 1 night? Shenemar, as the pasuk says, u'besaram yiyah loch. Their meat should be for you. Kachazat nufa, like the waved breast, u'beshok hayamin, and like the right thigh. Hekishu akasav l'chazav v'shok shel shlamim. The Torah compares to the gifts that are given to the Kohanim of the Korban Shlamim. Ma Shlamim nechal l'shnei yom v'layla echad. So just as the Korban Shlamim is eaten for 2 days and 1 night, Bechor nechal l'shnei yom v'layla echad. So too, when the Kohanim eat the Bechor, they eat it for 2 days and 1 night. So v'zu she'ela nish'al lifnei chachamim b'kerem b'yavna. Now, going back in time in history, this question was originally asked to the sages in Kerem b'yavna. Kerem b'Yavne was one of the, when the Beis HaMikdash was, when the Yerushalayim was under siege, right? Rabbi Yochanan asks, right, that he be given as a reward for telling the general, the Roman general, that he was going to become the emperor of Rome soon, and he was right, that he said, well, what can I give you as a reward? He said, well, allow me to get all the Chacham out of Yerushalayim, and they should go to escape to a separate location and maintain the Sanhedrin there. So they moved the Sanhedrin out of Yerushalayim when it was under siege before the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, and they went to Yavna. And they were...
Did he do it out of respect to the Jews?
He did it to save everybody's life, right? He did it to save everybody's life, right? So here they are in Kerem b'Yavna. It's called Kerem b'Yavna because it was a vineyard in Yavna because all the tables were set up in rows. I remember that it's different because in the Sanhedrin they were in semicircles, right? So this is now they're sitting in rows. So it's different sort of a situation that they had there. But now
I read that they did that to confuse the Romans, to make them think that it wasn't similar to the original Sanhedrin. So they did it in rows, so that the Romans don't get upset about it. So
there you go. So that is a good point.
Did he catch on eventually?
That's exactly what they say here in their books.
Okay.
Yep.
So okay.
Did not look at that.
Yep.
Okay. So now. Bechor, so they asked the following question. Bechor lekama nechol. They said, how long can you eat a bechor for? So Nana Rabbi Tarfon v'yamar l'shneimim v'layla echad. He says you've got 2 days and 1 night. Okay. Hayasham tamid echad. There was one student that was there. Shebala beis hamedrash l'fnei chacham tchila. He first came. This was his first day in Kerem b'Yavne. Now, he wasn't his first day learning, right? Because he had this is the big leagues. Like this yeshiva was the yeshiva that you got to be like amongst the sages ready to be on the Sanhedrin. So he's a big gadol, but nevertheless, right, his first day there. For Rabbi Yossi Haglili Shemo. His name happened to be Rabbi Yossi Haglili. Yes, that Rabbi Yossi Haglili, right? This was his first day. And you know what he does on his first day? Amar Lo, he gets up and he tells Rabbi Tarfon, Rebbe, Minayin Loch, where do you know that from? Amar Lo, he says to him, Beni, Shlomim kodshim kalim ubechor kodshim kalim. He says, because I know, because a shlomim is kodshim kalim and bechor is kodshim kalim. Ma shlomim nechol l'shnei yom v'layilechad, bechor nechol l'shnei yom v'layilechad. So it's the same rule. 2 days, 1 night.
He's one of those guys.
Rabbi Yossi should keep quiet now.
Oh, no. Amar Lo, he says, no, Rebbe, bechor matana l'kohen. He says a bechor is a gift to the kohen. V'chatas v'asham matana l'kohen. And a chatas and an asham is given to the kohen. Shlomim is not given to a kohen. Machatos v'asham liyom v'layla, bechor liyom v'layla. So therefore, we should compare it to a chatos and an asham. 1 day, 1 night. Amar Lo, Rabbi Tarfon answers him back. Nodun davar mitoch midavar. You got to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. Vanil midavar. That's right. Nodun davar mi davar, v'nilmad mi davar. And then you have to be able to compare which things are more similar and then learn from the similar one. Ma shlamim ein boyin al chet. Look, a shlamim doesn't come because you did an avera. Af bechor ein bal chet. So too a bechor doesn't come because you did an avera. Ma shlamim nechol l'shnei yom b'laylecha. But chatos and an asham come because of an avera, right? But shlamim is eaten for 2 days and 1 night. So the af bechor nechol l'shnei yom b'laylecha. So bechor is also 2 days and 1 night. Amar lo, he's not done. Rabbi Yosef says, Rabbi, Nodon davar mi davar. You may davar mi davar. You're right. We should compare what's similar, right? I'll tell you which one's similar. Chatas v'asham matanol kohen. Chatas and asham is more similar. It's the gift to the kohen. I'm insisting, right? It's more similar. It's a gift to the kohen. Ubechor matanol kohen. Ubechor is a gift for a kohen. Ma chatas v'asham imbayin with beneder medava. And I'll tell you the second thing that's similar is that a chatas and an asham isn't a voluntary offering. You don't volunteer to give it. You just have to give it. And so, af bechor eino beneder medava. So too, bechor is also not voluntary. You give it, right? Shlamim are voluntary. So, ma chatas v'asham nechol liyom v'layla, bechor nechol liyom v'layla. So therefore, it's more similar to chatas and asham. So it should be eaten for 1 day, 1 night. Okay, at that point, Kafat's Rabbi Akiva gets up, right? Rabbi Akiva is Rabbi Tarfon is Rabbi Akiva's Rabbi. Rabbi Akiva gets up and he says, no, my turn to answer. And he says, V'nistolik Rabbi Tarfon sits down, okay? Amar lo, he says, Harehu omer ubesaram iyalach. The pasuk says, right, that the meat is to be to you, right? Like the chazat nufa v'shok of the shlamim. Hekishana kasav, the chazat v'shok shel shlamim. The pasuk tells us that it's like a shlamim. You're right. You want to say which one's similar. Doesn't matter anymore once the pasuk tells you it's what it's similar to. Ma shlamim nechol l'shnei v'layla echad, af bechor nechol l'shnei v'layla echad. So it's just like shlamim is 2 days, 1 night. So too, bechor is 2 days and 1 night. Amar lo, Rabbi Yosef says to him, he kashto lechazav v'shok shel shlamim, v'ani makisho lechazav v'shok shel toda. You're right, it's compared to a chazav v'shok. But the Torah in that pasuk doesn't tell us which chazav and shok. You say it's comparing it to the chazav and shok of the shlamim. But what if it's talking about the chazav and shok of the korban toda? The korban toda, ma toda nechos l'layv l'yom, af b'chor nechol l'layv l'yom. Korban toda, also the chazav and shok is given to the kohen, and that one's only eaten for 1 day and 1 night.
What's the joke?
The chazeh and shok is the chest and the leg, right? Those are the portions that are given to the kohen of those korbanos. Amar lo, to which Rabbi Akiva says, Harehu omer ubesaram yiyalach. Their flesh shall be for you. She'ein talmud lomar lecha yiyah. So therefore, why does the pasuk then at the end have to say it is for you? Uma talmud lomar. So lecha yiyah. Why does the pasuk say it shall be for you? Hosif akosiv havaya acheres babechor. So the pasuk is specifically, you're right, I don't know which one to compare it to. This pasuk is telling me that this rule of 2 days and 1 night also belongs to the korban, which is the by the bechor. So, in other words, right, we could have learned this was a connection to a korban toda. But then it goes again and says a second time, this bechor is lecha yiyah, which means not only is it available to you for 1 day and 1 night, but it's also available to you again. And therefore, Rabbi Akiva is saying the second lecha yiyah tells me that that's your second day. Right? So Rabbi Akiva is adding an extra dimension to this pasuk. Right? First, it's connected to the chazav v'shok, which tells me 1 day and 1 night. Then a second time it says in the pasuk, lecha yiyah gives me an extra day. Now that's how you know 2 days and 1 night. Great. Story's over. Except that it's not. Rabbi Yosef sits down. They told this before Rabbi Yishmael. Amar Lahani said to the students, Tuva Amru lo Rabbi Akiva to Isa. Tell Rabbi Akiva that he made a mistake. That drush that he just made is not correct because Toda mehechan lamda mishlamim. How does Toda, you didn't have to come on to that extra step of adding the extra day with the extra lecha yiyah. Because Toda itself, even if Rabbi Yosef is right and you want to compare it to the Toda, where does the Toda know? Where do you know from the Toda from? The answer is that the chazan shok is given to the Kohen. The answer is that's learned from the Shlamim. So davar halame behekesh chozer malame behekesh. So, well, the problem with that is you've got to double hekesh now, right? You went from Toda to Shlamim, and then you went from Shlamim over to Bechor. So he says, "Ein alecha lidon belashon achron ela belashon rishon." So he says, 1 second. Oh, now that's his point. He says, you've got two. Rabbi Yossi Aglili wanted to suggest that the source, that the Bechor is going to be 1 day and 1 night. Why? Because you're comparing it to the Toda. You can't compare it to the Toda, because if you are comparing the Bechor to the Toda, you'd be using a double Hekesh, because you'd be going Shlomim to Toda, Toda to Bechor. And that you can't do. The only way this Hekesh works is if you're going directly from Shlomim to Bechor. And if you're going directly from Shlomim to Bechor, then it's 2 days and 1 night. Therefore, Rabbi Yishmael says, Rabbi Akiva's first answer was correct. You don't need that extra phrase, L'cho yeh. So the question is, Rabbi Yishmael, Hay L'cho yeh mayavidli. What does Rabbi Yishmael do with that phrase, L'cho yeh, that Rabbi Akiva used? So, Li made al Bechor balmum, shehu matana l'kohen. The answer is, what if you have a Bechor and it's blemished? So you know, a blemished Bechor that has no blemish goes to the Kohen as a sacrifice. What if it has a blemish? What happens then? The answer is, that animal is just given to the Kohen. It's his present. He gets to eat it, shach it, and use it. Shalom matzina b'chol Torah. We don't see that anywhere else in the Torah. For Rabbi Akiva, now Rabbi Akiva used this l'cho yeh for something else. Yolif la, he learns it from bisaram, that from the pasuk says, bisaram yelach, their meat, plural. The plural of their meat means both the Bechor that has a blemish and the Bechor that doesn't have a blemish belongs to the Kohen. Chad tam v'chad ba'al mum. Now, Rabbi Yishmael, bisaram dehanach bechoros ka'amar. And Rabbi Yishmael says that bisaram, plural of their meat, that just means that we're talking about the general category of all firstborns, right? And that's not one firstborn, this rule, but any firstborn, the meat goes to the Kohen. So therefore, it's not telling us a special law to tell me both the one that's blemished, the one that's not blemished. He learns it from L'cho yeh. Okay, now, b'mai kamiflagi. What is the argument between Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva, right? Why is it that Rabbi Akiva gave in? When Rabbi Yossi Aglili was pestering him, and he says, okay, we're going to learn this Bechor from Toda, right? It sounds like Rabbi Akiva is allowing you to learn Hekesh to Hekesh, right? Mar savar hey menu v'davar acher have Hekesh. The answer is because Rabbi Yishmael is saying that if you have a teaching that we learn part of the teaching from it and something else and another halacha, so then that's a Hekesh, right? And so therefore, that you can't learn. So for example, the fact that the Chaza and Shok, we have a Hekesh of Chaza and Shok from Shlomim over to Toda, that is both of them are given to the Kohen. But you know what the Hekesh does not do? It does not tell you how much time you can eat, because we don't say that the one by the Korban Toda also has to be eaten for 2 days and 1 night. So that is only a partial Hekesh. Says Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yishmael says that such a partial Hekesh is not allowed, even though, remember, we're trying to learn the time, which is not really the double Hekesh, because Toda, we know, has 1 day and 1 night from a different source. It's only a one step. We're learning the Chaz v'Shok goes to the Kohen. Rabbi Akiva says, no, Mar Savar lo havi Hekesh. And Rabbi Akiva says, that is not a Hekesh. So Rabbi Akiva, what's happening here is, we're talking about these pieces of meat that go to the Kohanim. How do we know they go to the Kohanim? Because by Shlomim they go to the Kohanim, therefore by Toda they go to the Kohanim. Well, now we want to go from Toda to learn it over to Bechor. Rabbi Yishmael says you can't, because that's a Hekesh to another Hekesh. Rabbi Akiva says, yeah, you could. You know why? Because the Hekesh from Shlomim to Toda is only telling me that these meats go to the Kohanim. It's not telling me how much time you have to eat it. So since that's not part of the Hekesh, you can still learn from Toda over to Bechor, because that's not part of the Hekesh. That was the original comparison of Shlomim to Toda. So that's their dispute. Okay, so fine. Bishlam lamanda amar lo havi Hekesh hainu dichsiv. So we've got circumstances. Now we see this as an argument. We've got two or three more cases that you have partial Hekeshim, that you have a Hekesh that goes to another Hekesh, but only part of the rule is learned. Can we do this double Hekesh if you are learning only part of the rule? So let's try this one. Bishlam lamanda amar lo havi Hekesh, according to the opinion that says it's not a Hekesh if you're learning part of the rule. Hainu dichsiv. So that explains the following drasha. By the sprinkling of the blood on Yom Kippur. Pasuk says, V'chein ya'aseh la'ohel moed. Keshem shemazeh lifnei v'lifnim. Achas lemala. v'sheva lemata midam hapar, right? So he says that we are going to learn that just like the Kohen Gadol, inside the Kodesh HaKodashim on Yom Kippur, he sprinkles 1 time up and 7 times down. Now, when it comes to the bull, it doesn't say 7 times down. It only says 1 time up by the bull. It says 7 times down by the goat. And we're saying that since both of them are being done inside the Kodesh HaKodashim, we're going to learn the 1 time up and the 7 times down through a hekesh between the two of them. Now, then we're going to learn a second hekesh. Kach maze behechal. So that's how you're going to also going to do it in the heichal, because it then says, so too you shall do by the bull in the heichal. Now we're going to learn, just as we learned that you're supposed to do 1 up, 7 down in the Kodesh HaKodashim, so too in the heichal, when we're doing it out here, so we're going to do it 1 up and 7 down. Yeah, but isn't that a hekesh from a hekesh? Because the only way you knew 1 up and 7 down was from a hekesh. So the answer is, Rabbi Akiva says it's not a hekesh, not a total hekesh. Why? Because we already knew you were going to sprinkle it. We already knew 1 up. We just didn't know the 7 down. We only learned part of the law. Well, since it's only part of the law through a hekesh, that I can then learn over to the other part, over to the heichal as well. But Elaman de Amar Havi hekesh, according to Rabbi Yishmael, that is a hekesh. And you can't do that. Ma'ikal Meimar, how are you going to answer how we know that you're supposed to sprinkle 1 up, 7 down in the heichal? So the answer is, Mekomos hu de gamri mehadadi. The answer is, we're not learning the numbers, because that we already understand. We're going to learn the locations through Akish. So therefore, meaning we're learning that it's two separate hekeshim of two completely according to Rabbi Yishmael, two completely unrelated things. Number one, we learned a hekesh about 1 up, 7 down. That was one thing. Then we have a second completely separate thing, which is that the heichal sprinkling is like the Kodesh Kodashim, and therefore it's not even like a partial thing, because we're not partially learning the up and down from here. We're just learning this inside the Kodesh Kodashim from to the heichal, and so therefore it's not really the same thing as a partial. Ve'ibois ema, or else if you want, you could say chutz mipnim bechad zimna gmir. That really it's a single hekesh, right? That we're going to learn that just like by the bull 1 up and then we know that through a hekesh from the bull over to outside that it's going to be 1 up, and this here 7 down, and then we learn that by hekesh over to the outside, but it's only one step. We're not learning to each other and then back out again. So it's only a 1-step hekesh. Okay, great. That's fine. Bishlama laman da'amar lo havi hekesh. How about another case like this? That's a little complicated. Let's try another one. Lo havi hekesh. Hainu dichsiv. I understand if you're going to tell me a partial hekesh is not a hekesh. That makes sense if you're going to explain by the shtei halechem on Shavuos. It says mimo shvosechem taviu lechem tnufa. You're supposed to bring a waved loaf of bread. She'ein talmud lomar taviu. Right, I don't need the pasuk says, right? Taviu is extra, right? From your places where you dwell, you shall bring the. Of course, you're bringing it. Why is it telling me to bring it? Matam lomar taviu. Why is it telling me that? Kol she'atam mevi mi makom acher harehu kazeh. Any korban, which is chametz, that you're going to be bringing from another location, like the 10 chalos of chametz, which are by the todah, by korban todah, which shall be just like these. So just like, because there's only a couple of places you bring, you're not allowed to bring chametz, as most of the menachos that we bring are not chametz. The only time that they are is by the shtei alechem of Shavuos, and also the chalos that are brought in the korban todah.
And Pesach.
And a Pesach you don't bring chametz, no. Right? So mala holon isaron lechala. So therefore, just as by the shtei alechem the volume is 1 isaron for each chala, afkan isaron lechala. So too by the korban todah, the amount for each chala is going to be 1 isaron. Uma mala holon. If you're going to say by the shtei alechem, it says shtei esronim. So that you're supposed to bring 2 esronim, afkan shnei esronim. So maybe it means that you're supposed to bring 2 esronim for all 10 loaves, right? Because that says This is only 2 esronim. This is also Talmud Lomar Tiyena. Therefore, the pasuk says Tiyena. Let's be clear that each one shall be 1 isaron, right? Just like the ones. Now, V'lanmanu asora lechametz. Okay, so now we know 10. You need 10 esronim for the chametz loaves. Asora lematzah. Now there's 40 loaves altogether. 10 of different types.
What is Isronim?
Esronim is a liquid measure. It says in the back. We'll get the blue art scroll in a moment, and we'll take a look and I'll show it what exactly how much the isaron is. But 10 isronos are for making chametz loaves. 10 isronos are for making the other 30 loaves. So minayin, how do I know that? Talmud Lomar achalos lechem chametz. Right, it says that you're supposed to. It makes a hekesh that you're supposed to. The pasuk is the 3 types of matzah are connected to the 10 that are chametz. Neged chametz have matzah. Right, here's where it is. So here's our isaron. Here we are. Nachos, meal offerings, the volumes.
It's an amount of flour, right?
It's a volume. An isaron is a volume. I thought they had brought exactly how much it was. Now I'll look that up in a second. Okay. Well, this way at least we want to finish the parak if we can. Mm-hmm. So they are equivalent amounts. So therefore, neged chametz have matzah. Connect the same amount of chametz you bring, the volume of the flour that you bring for chametz, that's the volume of bring of matzah, despite the fact that you're using 3 times as many loaves. Each one was a third of the volume of the flour. So therefore, it's a hekesh to another hekesh, right? From the shtei alechem, chametz ones. And then from the volume of the chametz ones, we know the volume of the matzah ones. Elamanda amar have hekesh ma'ik lamemer. Well, it's a hekesh, so how are you going to learn that? You can't do that, because it's double hekesh. So the answer is, Taviu yeserahi. The answer is it's not hekesh. Taviu is a riboy. It's an extra word. In order to tell me that word of shtei alechem is extra to tell me that it's a im'eno inyan, right? If I don't need this word here, so it's going to be as though I wrote this word taviu by the lach metoda, by the loaves of chametz by the toda. Which means it's as though it's written for the first. It's actually written that you need an isaron by the toda, so it's only a single hekesh. Okay, so that's the technical piece. Let's finish off with strong. The korban pesach is only eaten until chatzos, so that's questionable. We know that we learned in the first Mishnah in Brachos, everybody remembers that we're supposed to say Kriya Shema all night, except that we had learned that you're supposed to do it till chatzos. And why do we say till chatzos? Because we don't want you to mess up. So man tana, who's the opinion here in our Mishnah that says that the korban pesach has to be eaten until chatzos? Amar Rabbi Yosef says, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, this is Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah's opinion, the Tanya we learn in our Brisa. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says, Namar kan balaylo hazeh. It says by the Pesach Mitzrayim that you're supposed to eat it tonight. V'namar leholon, and then it says by Makas Bechoros, V'avarti beret Mitzrayim balaylo hazeh. I'm going through the night at this time. Ma leholon ad chatzos. Just like Makas Bechoros was at Chatzos, Afkan, so too eating the Pesach is ad Chatzos. Mi de'oraisa. It's not even a derabanan. Mi de'oraisa. You must finish your afikomen, which is the derabanan version of the korban pesach, but you must finish your korban pesach,
which is the second day of Pesach.
Which is
first day is midoraisa, second tonight midorabanan.
We're going to say, remember that the afikomen is always midorabanan because the afikomen is a zecher of the korban pesach, right? So Amar lo Rabbi Kiva says, "Velo kvar nemar rachatim also bichipazon." The pasuk says that you're supposed to eat it in a hurry. Ad shas chipazon, which means you're supposed to eat it until the time when it became a hurry that they had to get out of Mitzrayim. So therefore, they had all the way until the morning to eat it. So what does that mean that you're supposed to eat it at night? You might think that you could start eating your korban pesach the day before Pesach, like everything else. Every other kodshim, you've got to start eating the day that you shecht it, and then you continue at night. So Talmud Lomar, the pasuk says balayla. It says no, you got to eat this one at night, not during the day. So therefore, right? Amar le Abaye. Abaye says, Umimai de Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah udoraisa. How do you know our Mishnah is according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and the Mishnah is saying, Mi deoraisa, you've got to finish it by chatzos. Dilma midirabanan ulaharchik min avera. Maybe it's like we learned by Kriya Shema. It's a durabanan, and it's a Rabbi Akiva's according to everybody, and this is just midirabanan. We want you to finish earlier.
It says bechipazon.
That was Rabbi Akiva's version, right? But we always remember that in Maseches Brachos we say that in any mitzvah that we say that you have until Chatzos, that is always you have till the morning, right? And this is no exception because Rabbi Akiva says you have all night from bechipazon. Im kain, if that is true, my ella ad chatzos. The way the Mishnah's wording it is, you only have until chatzos, right? So therefore, ella ki hosam. So he says, ma hosam deoraisa, afkanami deoraisa. So therefore, he says, why is we're going out of our way to tell us, right? Ad chatzos, you only have. So therefore, whenever it says at the end of the Mishnah, it says also you can only eat it elatzli. You can only eat it roasted, not any other way. So whenever this Mishnah is using the word ella, it means to the exception of any other circumstance. You can only do it tzli. You can only eat it till chatzos. So therefore, kamash mu'an, this is deoraisa, and therefore this is Rabbi Lozer ben Azariah's opinion, not the regular standard opinion. Rabbi Lozer ben Azariah actually tells you must eat it by chatzos. Hadron alach ezu mekoman, hadron alach ezehu mekoman. We begin the sixth paragraph.
Wow. Beautiful. Shkoyach.
TBC on Tuesday.
Amazing.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, Yehuda, your questions. We got to write them down here. You want